Hello everyone, hope you are doing well. In this video, we are going to set up tables in the Azure SQL database. However, this particular video will help you setting the tables in any Microsoft SQL Server database. Doesn't matter if it is on local or not. Now, this particular video is a part of a series called as Software Engineering Bootcamp, where we are building an e-commerce platform right from scratch. So right from setting up a Java application to all the way deploying it to Azure is something we are doing. And as a part of it, we are learning various things. There are hundreds of databases, but this is the database which we are planning to use. And these are the tables which we are planning to create. That is user table, inventory table, cart, and order. Basically, if you have an e-commerce platform, you want to have some users, then you want to have some products or inventory, whatever you can call, then you add things to the cart and then eventually place an order. So in the previous video, we have already set up the Azure SQL database. You can go and check out how to set up the database. Now, once you set up the database, you get the URL to the connect to the database. That's this particular URL. Now, what we'll do is that we'll go to the Windows machine and connect to the SQL database, but there are other ways to connect as well. So for that, you go to the Windows machine or you can go to the Linux or Mac machine. There are ways. There is Azure Data Studio you can use to connect to the database. The steps are pretty much the same. But in Windows, this particular platform is very helpful. That is SQL Server Management Studio. You write this on search and this particular things will come up. You click on this and then you will reach this page, and here you can download SSMS. You click here and then you can download the SQL Server Management Studio. It will give you an installer. So if I go to my downloads, it will give you something like this. You double click it and install it. Just next. Once you do that, this particular page will open when you launch the application. Here you can give the endpoint which you got when you created the SQL server, and then here the username and the password. So those things you would have already set up when you were setting up things on Azure. So here you got the username, the server name, then the database name is this backend. That's the database name. And then we have login as Anubhav, that's my name, and the password I have already set up. So you can set up those things. Once you do that, you will end up reaching here, something like this. So once you log in, now here what we'll do is that we'll create bunch of tables. So for this, what I have done is that I have prepared something so that it's easy and time saving for all of us. Let me copy this and then I'll commit this particular into the Git as well so that you can later come and see. So I'll just copy it and then paste it here for you and then later commit it as well. Okay. So the first thing I want to create is the user. So the first thing is create table users. So for example, what happens in my e-commerce platform is that people, the moment they log in, the moment they log in successful using Google, so that's what I'm using. So the moment the login is successful, I'll create an entry in the database, that is create user. And the user table will have something like ID. External ID is something, for example, right now I'm doing login with Google, right? Tomorrow I can add login with Facebook. So to have a generic name, I thought, why not just have external ID? So external ID could be if this is the email, and the external ID is something which is understood by Google only. So this could be, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, something like that. Doesn't really matter, but this is external ID belongs to the ID by Google. Then we have email, then we have is email verified, name, local. So these all things I get from Google when a person logs in successfully. How to log in with Google? I have created one video in this particular playlist. You can check out that. Once person has logged in, then I'll have their information so that whatever steps they do in the subsequent things, we would come to know. Then we have something called as create table products. So this particular table is again an important table where we add all the products in our database. So for example, I have ID, name. ID is just an auto-generated ID. Then I have name, then book, the category, price, how many items are available, and their description. Here also, you see that this is how the information would look like. First is user, the second is product. The third is the cart table. The user created their account, then they looked into some of the products, and then once they were satisfied with one or two products, they wanted to add those products to the cart. Here in the cart table, I have something called as cart ID. Now this particular ID will be same. At only one cart ID will be in the pending state. So why so? Because I have something like ID, user ID, product ID. So in one cart, you can add multiple products, right? You can add one Indian mythology book and two Havells bulb, right? You can't do that in your SQL. There is nothing called as list for one cart ID. How do you have an array? So how do you do that? You create multiple entries for ID. V2, there are two entries for ID. And then you have the same user ID, but different product ID. That is for user ID 1, product ID 1, the item count is 1. And whatever it's modified today and the state is pending. Likewise, you create one more entry if there is a different product which exists. So whenever you want to know what's the cart status for a particular user ID, you make a DB call, you get the state equal to pending, and then you get all the rows and then give to the user that, hey, you have added 5 items for Havells and 1 item for the book. So in this way, it will be easy to query that how many items are there for each of the product category, and then you query by user ID and get those information. It's always good to have example values somewhere in the comments so that it's easy to imagine how things would be working. So now person has added things to the cart. Now they want to place the order. For placing the order, they would just place the order, basically order equal to success, and you can have whatever validation that the payment is done, pending, something like that. And here again, the order ID is just auto-generated ID, user ID is the user ID. Then cart, this particular cart, you see the same cart ID is used. Here you see it's not like a unique. The unique constraint is not applied here. It's a unique identifier, which is a GUID. I'll come to the data types in a while. And then you see the total value is calculated and this is the cart. And then we also try to add some of the sample value of the products because right now we just want to have some values of the products. So that's the overall idea. You have some users. And now I'll just explain a few things about the tables. That is, first is create user. That's how the syntax is. So the way the syntax works, and you can check out W3 schools as well on how to write syntax. So the syntax is simple: create table user, then you give ID or any of the column names, then their data type. This is a primary key and it's an identity, which means that it will be auto-generated. Then you have external ID, then you just keep on giving the column names and their data types. Nothing special here. Varchar is varchar, means the string you can imagine with some limit. Bit is nothing but boolean, and then all are just strings. Likewise here in the products as well, you have ID, name, category, price. So this decimal, this denotes the number in this format, 4481.00. You can check out more details. These are the data types and their column names which are defined. Now, the third column is a little interesting. So that's why I want to cover it here, the third table. So here you have ID is fine, but you see user ID has foreign key in the users table. So that's how you write user underscore ID. This is a column name which has the data type int. It is a foreign key which references to users table, users ID, users bracket ID. So this makes sure that whenever you insert any data into this particular table, what it will do is that it will check that whether the user ID equal to 1 exists here or not. It can never happen that here you get value equal to 2 because there is no user with ID 2. So even if there is some bug in your code and you try to insert the user with ID 2, the database will not allow. Database will say that, hey, if you try to insert anything with ID equal to 2, but that ID equal to 2 does not exist here, it will give you an error. So that validation is done by the database. Likewise, product. If you want to add a product with ID 1, 2, so that product ID 1 and product ID 2 should be present here. You can't add 3 here if 3 is not present here. You first add a product, then you can add things to the cart. So that validation is done using the foreign key. Foreign key means that whatever is added here should all be already present in the products table. So that's a database level validation which you can add. That's called as a foreign key. So this is one of the important things which I wanted to add. Other things are pretty much straightforward, like date data type and other data types. That's the course of action which a customer will perform. Firstly, they will add the entry to the users table, then to the products. The products would be added in before itself, like from the e-commerce owners themselves. Then things will be added to the cart, and then eventually the order will be placed. And there will be some status you can maintain, like pending, success, etc. And then you insert a few items to the database. Now let's just run the queries one by one to see the output, how things look like. So the first is create users table. You just run and the users table get created. Then you create products table. Then the product table will get created. Then you create carts table, and the carts table will get created. And eventually you create the orders table for the orders to get created. The order, and then eventually you add some values into the, now you come here, you do a right click and refresh. So you will see all the tables in this particular SQL Server Management Studio as well. So we'll just wait a little because I have selected one of the cheapest options. So it takes a little time for things to respond. So you see the tables have been created with the columns, whatever columns we have configured. So they are created. I think in the next video, what I'll do is that I'll cover how to connect to this database. In the next video, what I'll do is that I'll share how to connect to the database using the Java code. So I'll use the Spring Boot application. I use a Java code to connect to the database and get all these values. So you will have all these values in the database and then you can query. I hope this video was helpful. Till the next time, bye.